Broadcasting live from the Capitol OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Day morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us the day after some big racing down at PARX, certainly highlighted by the Pennsylvania Derby, the Cotillion, another group of nice stakes races, and we'll hit on those here in a little bit of a review. We talked about them yesterday with Tom Law, who was down there covering it along with our friend Tim Wilkin and Anthony Affronti. When we talked to Tom, he said it had rained overnight Friday into Saturday, but he was expecting things to let up during the afternoon. And that seemed to be the way it worked out. Obviously, it rained so much the track was off, but it didn't seem like it was raining, at least not heavily during the after. From the signal, it really didn't look like it was raining much at all. But again, the damage had been done, so to speak, overnight. There was plenty of moisture, and the track was off. But they were still able to run a very good card. Their biggest day of the year, and it played out very well with some nice performances, some notable performances, some upsets, and as I say, we'll hit on that in just a moment. They also had a nice card down at Churchill last night, kicked off at 6 and went through the evening, and that was a good stakes card as well. There was 4 nice stakes there that we'll hit on in a few moments. So again, we'll do some recap action this morning as we normally do on a Sunday, and a little preview as well, because we'll bring Tony Kalo back in. We haven't talked to Tony since we went up to Saratoga. We were having Tony plugged in pretty regularly on Sunday mornings to kind of preview some of the Monday, Tuesday action at Finger Lakes. But again, once we moved up to Saratoga, we're more live than via phone, so we haven't talked to Tony in a while. But we will have Tony on this morning to not only preview some Monday action at Finger Lakes, but 2 nice stakes races, 2 really nice stakes races for 2-year-olds tomorrow at the Finger Lakes. And we will, as I say, hit on that with Tony towards the end of the show. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll also hit on some news and notes and whatnot. Do want to remind you and alert you that today here at the Clubhouse Racebook, it is a football Sunday, as it is and will be throughout the football season. You can come down to the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany, and watch all the football action and catch all the racing action as well. You can also put your name on one of the squares, and if the scores match up at the end of the quarters, the half, the game, you can win some prizes. It's a lot of fun here. Clubhouse Racebook, football Sundays throughout the season, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, let's jump in and take a look at some of that nice stakes action from yesterday down at PARX, and we'll kick things off taking a look at the Pennsylvania Derby, which wound up with a very, very nice field in here. Field of 11 was scheduled. A field of 11 went. The favorite was Saudi Crown off the close-up second place finish right up here in Saratoga in the Jim Dandy behind Forte. I thought Magic Tap was interesting for Steve Asmussen. Like Saudi Crown, lightly raced with only 4 starts. Saudi Crown had some stakes experience, though, running second, the Dwyer second, and the Jim Dandy close-up seconds. Magic Tap was coming out of an allowance event, hadn't tried stakes company, but I thought that could be an up-and-coming 3-year-old. I thought that one was a little bit interesting as well. Reincarnate certainly was taking some action or some buzz leading into the race. 3-1 on the morning line, went off at 9-2. But as you can see down the stretch here, as he likes to do, leads all the way. It is Saudi Crown as the favorite. I will note, though, number 2, Dreamlight. This is a nice late run from a Todd Pletcher, Micropoli, St. Elias runner. only the sixth start of the career for Dreamlike, who got up for second under Irod Ortiz. Irod was quoted after the race to say, if the winner came back a little bit, I thought we were in a good spot. My horse was really running, and he was. Came out of a couple of tries up at Saratoga, maiden break or two back, and then had run fifth in a allowance event behind the aforementioned Magic Tap. Magic Tap, you can see the windshield colors there on the rail, is running well, but just gets past late to wind up fourth. The Dreamlight gets second, and then Magic Tap gets nosed out by Il Miracolo, another horse I thought was a little bit interesting. But they're well back in the first two finishers. Saudi Crown impressed. Florent Giraud on board, a 105 buyer. That's a very solid number for Saudi Crown, and right in the wheelhouse of what he's been firing. In the Dwyer had a 106. In that close-up second, in the Jim Dandy, also had a 105. So yesterday a 105. So he's right in his wheelhouse now. Brad Cox said after the race, we were waiting for a breakout performance. We got it. It was only, again, the fifth career start. So it'll be interesting. They'll head to the Breeders' Cup. Where will they go? They weren't sure. But Brad Cox, I heard an interview right after the race. He said, we'll look at the Classic. Is the 1.25 miles right for him or not? Maybe we'll go in the mile. And then I read a follow-up article. I think it was Dave Grenning's article in the Racing Forum, where he seemed a little more committed to, you look at his breeding, I think 1.25 miles is okay. But also one of the follow-up articles, the owners were kind of like, we'll do what's best for the horse. We'll kind of make a decision. They have plenty of time to decide one way or the other. I was watching one of the broadcasts yesterday when they played the race, and after the race, somebody said, well, he's not firmly at the top. And it might have just meant generally, but the sentence was, well, he's firmly at the top of the 3-year-old picture right now. And I will give the benefit of the doubt. I think he had to be generally, because I think at the top of the 3-year-old crop right now is clearly Arcangelo with the Belmont and the Travers. This was a nice performance, but I don't think the resume is enough to say Saudi Crown's at the top. Now he goes on and wins the Breeders' Cup Classic. That may put a different spin on things. And the 3-year-olds, I think, being not a super strong 3-year-old class necessarily, having kind of nobody defining themselves as the leader until Arcangelo won the Travers, and he's got the Travers and the Belmont, so he's not jumping out as a superstar necessarily. He just leads the class. So it hasn't been a class of superstars on the 3-year-old side, but the older division is also not showing up, and so the 3-year-olds, as we get to the latter part of the year, are becoming a little more interesting. The Breeders' Cup poll, I think, has had Arcangelo on top for the past couple of weeks. So it's not out of the question that they could pick the Breeders' Cup Classic. Saudi Crown could run well. And at that point, becomes a little more interesting for the Eclipse picture, perhaps. But again, 105 buyer, the owners, the FMQ stable, their Saudi Arabian connections, and Brad Cox noted at one point, and then in a follow-up article, the owners noted that the Saudi Cup early next year is probably going to be on the agenda for Saudi Crown, but gets it done yesterday and gets it done pretty nicely, again, on the front end down at PARX over. And at that point, the track was listed as sloppy and sealed. So nice 105 buyer there in the victory at PARX. One of the few, I'm going to have to go back and actually count, but I was going to say one of the few favorites to get it done, one of the few logicals to get it done. And we'll see a result of that when we look at the cotillion here. But there was a mix. There was some logicals and then there was some upsets. And there was an upset, not a huge upset, but there was an upset in the cotillion, pretty mischievous. We talked about Arcangelo, the top of the 3-year-old class. Pretty mischievous, has to be the top of the 3-year-old fillies, having won the Oaks and the Acorn, and then the ill-fated Test as well. So she went off as the 2-1 favorite in yesterday's cotillion. I had her on top. I had Ceiling Crusher right underneath in the second spot. And I said, Doug O'Neill brings this one in from Southern California. And you see these Southern California shippers come in and often run very well. And she had run very well already. She was a Calbred who had faced Calbreds in most of the career, but had beaten Open Company last time at Del Mar. And that Doug O'Neill elected to come, said something. And there she is in those lime green silks on the front. Pretty Mischievous is making a late run, but you can tell it's going to be too late. Number 5, Occult for Chad Brown, another horse that was getting a little buzz, winds up third in there. So it was the 3 logicals. Pretty Mischievous was the 2-1 favorite. Ceiling Crusher and Occult were both sitting as the co-second choices at 3-1. Doug O'Neill said this was our Breeders' Cup after the race, as though this horse, Calbred, was not nominated to the Breeders' Cup. But then he noted, it'll be up to the owners if they want to chunk up the extra money to take their shot at the Breeders' Cup. And this late in the game, it's a lot of money. Now, they walked away from the $1 million race with over $500,000 in winnings. So we'll see what they decide to do. But as I say, the Breeders' Cup has a nice nomination fee if you're this late that is fairly hefty. And Doug O'Neill noted that, this was our Breeders' Cup. But again, that's easy to say right after the race or before the race to think, this is and then you win and you collect $500,000. Maybe you think, maybe we'll take our shot. So we'll see what they do with Ceiling Crusher. I wouldn't be surprised either way if they went or not. She winds up with a 93 buyer yesterday. That was for her, not a lifetime best. She had fired a 94 in one of the Calbred stakes races that she won out at Santa Anita earlier this year. Pretty Mischievous, again, a 93 wins the race. Pretty Mischievous. Her lifetime best was 96. And other than that, she had never run a 93. She has a lifetime best 96 in the Acorn. Her best before that was the 92, winning the Kentucky Oaks. So she was kind of right in her wheelhouse, too. But as I say, a little bit of an upset there. Not a huge upset with the co-second choice getting it done, but Pretty Mischievous, as the leader of the division, winds up running second in the Cotillion yesterday down at PARX. All right, the Gallant Bob also on the card yesterday. I kind of kicked myself afterwards because I went with Rivet, who I think went off, not the favorite, the second choice. The betting public was right. Rivet, I think, was the favorite, though, on the morning line, at 5-2. And I looked, and I wasn't convinced off the last 2. I thought there was excuses in the last 2, but I wasn't totally convinced. But I tilted towards Rivet just because I wasn't totally convinced on. I thought they all had kind of similar pros and cons. Right under Rivet, I used Damon's Mound, though. It was coming off a nice win in a stakes race at Charlestown. Damon's Mound, you might remember, won nicely in the career debut last year at Churchill in July, and then came up to Saratoga and won the Saratoga Special for Michelle Lovell. Subsequently didn't quite live up to that, but the win at Charlestown might have indicated getting back in good form, and that's what the betting public thought. They made Damon's Mound the 9-5 choice. Nautical Star at 4-1 is going to run second, and Gordian Knot, the 10, runs third. Rivet winds up running fifth as the 5-2 second choice in here. But Damon's Mound, Michelle Lovell, Junior Alvarado on board, the number 4 horse, with a nice run in here. Chart margin will wind up being just a little bit over a length. As I say, Nautical Star with Irad Ortiz is coming. Just, you can tell, not going to get any momentum to get any closer than that length and a quarter under the wire. So it was a nice win for Damon's Mound. And a win in a grade 2 that harkened this one back to those first couple of starts early in the career that did show some promise. As I say, didn't live up to that early promise. The big maiden win, the Saratoga Special win, and then hadn't won until that race at Charlestown last time. Now has strung a couple together, including this nice grade 2 yesterday at PARX. So it seems like maybe Damon's Mound in career start number 8 and 9 has gotten back to the promise that he showed early in the career. It'd be interesting to see. And I didn't read any follow-up as to what they might have planned for this one next. But as I say, it seems like maybe he's back to what was kind of foretold earlier in the career. He had a 90 buyer. That was not a lifetime best, but it was close to his lifetime best was 92. In a second place finish earlier this year, he had not fired anything at 90 or over other than that. So that 90 was a pretty good number for him. And as I say, just seems like he's maybe gotten back to a good spot right now. We'll see where he goes next and if he can continue to live up to that early promise in the career with a little bit of a late 3-year-old season rebound. PARX Dirt Mile, this was one of the upsets I alluded to earlier and one of the more interesting races on the card because Gunite, after I said yesterday, these were two of the best races up at Saratoga. The Vanderbilt that Gunite just lost to Elite Power and the Forgo that Gunite won over Elite Power. And again, two of the better races up at Saratoga this season. Coming out of the win in the Forgo, Gunite goes off as the 30-cent to $1 favorite. I said yesterday, I like Gunite. I had Gunite on top. I think off those two was the likeliest one to have to beat. 3 to 5, though, seemed a little short. I said Dr. Ardito for Chad Brown was interesting, and Nimitz class was also potentially interesting. Nimitz class is the one who's going to prove most interesting, though. And I said when I looked, the 30 cent to the dollar meant you were getting some fair value on Dr. Ardito at 4 to 1 and Nimitz class at 6 to 1. And Nimitz class is going to get it done. Paco Lopez on board, going to wind up winning by almost a couple of lengths. Gunite will wind up running second in here at 30 cents to the dollar. Tyler Gaffalione on board. And Tyler Gaffalione, after the race, said, you know, I'm not convinced that the mile is outside of his scope yet, but the 2 turns seems to stymie him a little bit. And he said he had a lot of horse still about the quarter pole and then just didn't get the acceleration he was kind of hoping for going forward. But Gunite winds up running second in there behind Nimitz class, who again upsets at a $15 price for Paco Lopez. And the game plan here was, I think, to see how he could do at the mile and then potentially go on to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And this team has Echo Zulu to go in the sprint. We'll see what they do now. They tried the Dirt Mile last year at Keeneland and wound up 4th. And so now out of this second place finish and what Tyler Gaffalione said, and I didn't hear any follow-up to that indicated, all right, this juggles up our plans. I would think this is one where you sit down and you kind of talk about it a little bit. And I have vamped as much as I can. If the control room wants to alert me, yes or no on the replay. No on the replay. Okay. So we will move on, but take my word for it. Nimitz class over Gunite with a 100 buyer for Nimitz class, and he's hit the 100 mark a couple of times earlier in the career. But the article I read, and again, there was a couple folks for the DRF covering, so I'm not sure who wrote, but said Gunite was, kind of in his wheelhouse. With the 100 buyer being the winner, I will say, though, Gunite has a string of triple-digit buyers, so I'm not quite sure he was at his best yesterday, finishing second behind a straight 100 buyer. But he does run second, and again, now it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward with regard to the Breeders' Cup. All right, in the Turf Monster, I was kind of surprised they ran it given the weather, but they only had a couple of, I think there was not a lot of turf racing yesterday. And so I think they felt like, all right, we've got the big day, we've got the turf monster. It could kind of fall apart. That said, the horses I used on the turf were also a little eligible to run well had it been moved to the dirt. But I thought By Land and Sea was good with either surface. By Land and Sea is going to wind up, and I'm just looking my pages here. I'm I was looking at the alphabet soup. Let me change now to the turf monster. And by that was also the alphabet soup was one of the other turf races on the day. But the turf monster, Nobody Listens was the winner there, as you saw, the number 2 horse, coming out of a series of nice wins, 2 back on the dirt at Horseshoe Indy, and last time on this course, PARX, the grass in the PARX Dash, in anticipation of this. You can see there that the rain, they're kicking up kind of mud on the turf. It was a funny look, but Nobody Listens gets it done. Chart margin's going to be 3 lengths. Tyler Gaffalione on board. Smooth B second. Roses for Deborah third. Roses for Deborah was the horse I liked. The betting public did as well at 3-5. It was a filly facing the boys, however, but she was coming out of some nice efforts, including a couple of stakes wins up at Saratoga for Christophe Clement. Irod Ortiz was on board. She, ran decently to be third. It was a well-beaten third. She was back there just over 5 lengths. But Nobody Listens with Gaffalione on board. Coming in off a good season so far, 4 wins in 7 starts, a second, a third, and again, having won that PARX Dash over the PARX turf last time, based out at Horseshoe Indy, and came into this with a bullet work out there in Indiana. So he lives up to that and does it with a 97 buyer. So pretty solid number for Nobody Listens winning the turf monster. And then, as I said, on the day, there were logicals that got it done, and then there were some upsetters, some minor upsetters anyway. But one of the logicals, and probably the most impressive performance on the day, and I said it yesterday when I was in here handicapping, king of the quirky subdivision of marathoners. There's not a strong string of races for these horses across the country. So again, they have to pick their spots. And so it's kind of a quirky subdivision, but these marathoners, Next was the king of that division, coming out of a couple of triple-digit buyer wins in the Brooklyn 2-back, going 1.5 miles at Belmont, and then 1.75 miles in the Birdstone up at Saratoga, big win up there. So Next was certainly logical at 30 cents to the dollar. Probably, again, too short, but as compared to some of the other ones that I thought were too short on the day, this one was maybe a little more believable. Too short, but I wouldn't expect too much more value there, but wound up living up to the short price and doing so absolutely convincingly. Next, again, being a stout marathoner, gets it done here. The chart margin, 25 lengths. My Imagination runs second, riding with Biden, who looked to be the kind of second choice in here, is going to wind up third and just get caught. And I commented yesterday, if you had Riding with Biden, watch him come under the wire. Riding with Biden looks like Paco Lopez kind of gives up here and just gets caught. He's standing up on the horse. I didn't read anything afterwards, but if you lost your exacta using Riding with Biden, I think you have a fair complaint there. Again, Paco Lopez was just kind of standing up as they came to the wire, and he gets caught for second by a nose. My Imagination at 84-1 gets it done, and the exacta with the $2.60 horse on top, the exacta pays $131 with the longest price on the board coming in second. But again, Paco Lopez, to me, that's one the steward should take a look at, and at the very least call him in and say, hey, you gotta kind of ride through the wire. And again, maybe there was an excuse. I don't know. Maybe he felt something but again, you can see it here. He's kind of standing up, and he's going to get caught for the exact. That is not a good ride, in my opinion. Particularly, as I said, if you had that exact, I think you have a legitimate concern. Let me also note, wins by 25 lengths next, and gets a 104 buyer. Very solid. Third straight triple-digit buyer. It was the fifth out of the last 6 starts for Next. Came in up with a bullet workout, too. A stout marathoner like this, working 59 a change at Turfway just about 10 days prior. So Next, that was, again, one of the more impressive performances on the day down at Churchill. I will also say it was interesting. The jockey, Luan Machado, who pretty much the regular, certainly over the past 5 starts has been the regular rider for Billy Cowan's training and Next. Luan Machado, I was watching some of the evening races at Churchill yesterday, and he hops off of Next, goes to the airport, hops on a plane, and gets down to Churchill because it was an allowance optional claiming event. And a credit is a horse he had ridden and wanted to get back for, and he did get back. And a credit wins the allowance optional claim. Let me pull up the chart here, and I'm guessing the purse probably made the trip worthwhile. But Luan Machado getting it done on Next in the stakes race at PARX, and then hops on the plane, and yes, $141,000 purse. He gets it done with a credit a little bit later in the evening down at Churchill Downs as well. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll shift our attention, take a look at some of that stakes action yesterday at Churchill. A little bit later on, Tony Kalo will join us from the Finger Lakes. They have a couple of nice stakes there tomorrow for the 2-year-olds. So all of that right after this. Stay tuned.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio. Thanks for joining us. It was a nice evening of racing at Churchill, and looking at the broadcast, it looked like they had a pretty good crowd. Those evening cards down there are kind of popular, and I always think, you throw a few of those in, maybe you bring some new fans in. I think you get a younger crowd. They were kind of interviewing some of the crowd. There was a happy younger crowd yesterday, and a couple of them seemed like their happiness was enhanced on the evening. But it was a nice crowd there, we talked to Joe Christofek yesterday, and again, there was a number of cancellations due to that storm on the East Coast yesterday. Delaware, Pimlico, Monmouth at the Meadowlands, and Belmont at Aqueduct canceled yesterday. Things seem back to normal today with that storm. But when I talked to Joe Christofek yesterday on the show, I asked about the weather. He said, we're not getting affected by that at all. And it is a gorgeous day, and it looked like a gorgeous night down there. So it played out well for the stakes action, which kicked off with the Bourbon Trail, 3-year-olds going 1 mile and 3/16. And we said it yesterday when we were handicapping this during the Handicappers Report. It had to feel like a second string, kind of an interesting little fun stakes race for the 3-year-olds. You had a couple of horses that were stepping out of the St. Louis Derby. Cheryl's B for Dallas Stewart. Only a couple of starts in the career. One of those was in the 2000 Guineas over in Dubai. You had the winner, Big Data, of the Super Derby. So again, it was kind of a second stringer event, but it was fun because of that. It's horses that you start on the second string a couple together, and maybe move up and face the first string a little bit later on. And we will see if that happens with the winner here. The winner is going to be number 2, Slip Mahoney, going out for Brad Cox off a close-up second-place finish in the St. Louis Derby last time. Prior to that, it won an allowance event up at Saratoga right at the beginning of the meet, and then went out to the St. Louis Derby, and as I say, just missed as the favorite. Well, he gets it done here. It's number 2, Slip Mahoney, but it's going to be close. He's going to get up and just get by Big Data. Big Data, the winner of the Super Derby, winds up a neck behind. Oscar Eclipse, who I thought was interesting, stepping into stakes company for the first time for Brian Lynch, winds up third. Decent little stakes debut, I suppose, but a well-beaten third, just 4 lengths back or so for Oscar Eclipse. Slip Mahoney, though, getting it done with the clever name, the fun name, the Bowery, the Bowery Boys, Slip Mahoney, an Al Gold trainee. And I think they had some expectations for this horse earlier in the career that didn't quite live up to, but it's had a nice career. Broke the maiden in the third career start, then ran second in the Gotham, had a couple of less than enthusiastic performances then in the Wood Memorial and the Long Branch. But as I say, came back with the allowance win up at Saratoga, the close-up second in the St. Louis Derby, and this nice stakes win yesterday down at Churchill. So again, Slip Mahoney, I have the feeling they were hoping he would be in that first tier of 3-year-olds. Hasn't quite worked out that way, but he's in that second tier of stakes performing 3-year-olds. And with yesterday's purse of 180, you're verging on $500,000 in earnings, over $400,000 in earnings. So not a bad career in 9 starts for Slip Mahoney. Also on the card yesterday, the Harrods Creek. This one also for 3-year-olds, but for 3-year-olds sprinting 7 furlongs. And Ever So Mischievous certainly looked the part. Couple of wins in a couple of seconds in 4 starts for Brad Cox. And the betting public made Ever So Mischievous the even money choice. And he's going to live up to it here and do it pretty easily. Ever So Mischievous, again, in the 5th career start now, taking the action, and will wind up getting it done. Chart margins just over 3 lengths. Bourbon Bash, the number 1, as the longest price on the board at 11-1, runs second, and Loyal Company at 5-2 runs third in there. But at $4.38, Christian Torres on board, who's riding very well down at Churchill for Brad Cox, getting it done. Career win number 3 and career start number 5. And again, 3 wins, 2 seconds, and 5 starts for Ever So Mischievous. This was the stakes debut. But again, for a stakes debut, that was a nice performance. Now, that said, I'm not sure this was the saltiest of stakes. I'm just looking. There are very few stakes on the resume of some of the others in here. Bourbon Bash has some stakes underneath determinedly. Loyal Company had the 1 stake start. Praetorian Guard, however, scratch. So again, it wasn't a super strong field of stakes performers, but it was if you're going to do it by 3 lengths and do it pretty easily in your stakes debut. And again, being lightly raced, you would think the team has a nice little runner going forward there with Ever So Mischievous. The Seneca overnight, $175,000 for the 3-year-old fillies, going 1 mile and a 16th. Poblano took the action. I said on the show yesterday, I thought Poblano was interesting. Moving into stakes company for the first time off a maiden breaker that was very good looking in the seasonal debut. Going out for Brendan Walsh and Godolphin. Poblano did take the action from the betting public at 3-2, but disappoints when a well-beaten fifth in here. Did have some trouble in the race, but it's Jajira getting it done. The number 7 for Phil Bauer, Julian Lepereau on board. Went off as the 5-2 third choice in the race. She's looking lucky. Runs second. Taxed runs third. Taxed was actually the second choice at 5-2, but pretty easy victory. It's just over 6 lengths for Jajira. Pays $7.80. And this is one that was coming off of really a turf career. If you look at it, had one dirt start that was okay, a fourth in the Alcibiades behind Wonder Wheel last year. Other than that, the 6 other starts on the resume, all on the turf. So going to be interesting to see what they do with Jajira going forward. Had some nice workouts on the dirt leading into this. And as I say, the betting public looked at the record and thought it was legit, regardless of the surface question marks, making this one 5-2. So Jajira, out of a well-beaten 6th in the Saratoga Oaks Invitational last time, takes a lot more action and gets it done. Had won the Tepin on the turf at Ellis in the start prior to the Saratoga start. So had a pretty good record, 3 wins in 7 starts, a second and a third. Now 4 wins in 8 starts. And again, you would have to think they will definitely be looking at dirt in the future. Or given the win in the Tepin, now they have a horse. You got to love to have a horse like that to feel like we can go either direction and have a little bit of life here, turf or dirt. But that win yesterday, and I haven't seen a number yet, but it seemed like, if not the best, at least one of the better runs of the career. And finally, the Dogwood wound up stakes action last night, 3-year-old fillies, grade 3 event. I thought Twice as Sweet was interesting for Brendan Walsh. The buyers seem to have a little bit of an edge. The betting public made that one with the third choice, actually the 4th choice at 4-1. So the betting public wasn't as convinced as I was. They made yesternight the 5-2 choice. Yesternight, lately raced for Lindsay Schultz, who, when we talked to Frank Vespi last weekend, he said, keep your eyes on Lindsay Schultz, kind of an up-and-comer. And part of that up-and-coming resume was getting tied in with Marshall Graham and 10 Strike, a Matacat, part of the ownership of yesternight. But Marshall Graham tends to look around and give some horses to, trainers who maybe aren't on the front page, but maybe soon to be on the front page. And that may be the case with Lindsay Schultz with yesternight. Again, was the favorite, but winds up third as the favorite. Lightly raced, couple of starts, couple of wins in 4 starts yesternight. Again, the 1 winds up third. Metaphysical, the 2, as the second choice at 5-2, winds up second. But it's number 5, winning pretty easily. Lady Raider, 23-1, longest price on the board. Has shown some early speed, did in the PPs, and so you might have thought, maybe this is a pace play. Although there was other speed in the race, and as it turned out, Lady Raider was not on the front end throughout. Was kind of sitting 4th early in the race. So the early speed may have been something to attract you to play the horse at a price, but it didn't play out that way. Had tried the synthetic at Presque Isle in a stake last time, showed some of that early punch before fading to 8th. 2 starts back was on the turf at Hawthorne, showed the speed and won, but had some okay dirt races underneath. Now, I say okay, they probably, they weren't necessarily standouts as compared to this bunch, other than the most recent dirt race at Prairie Meadows. Little stakes race, and pretty much led them all the way around. That was 3 starts back and did it with an 84 buyer. That was a lifetime best, and that was good enough to match up with this bunch. So if you looked at that last dirt race and looked at the price, you might have jumped on Lady Raider. That said, others were, I think, more attractive with their consistency with the numbers they were throwing. But Lady Raider did get it done at the price. And as they say, if you do a little reverse engineering, you can find. I did not use Lady Raider. But if you did a little reverse engineering, there was that one race that maybe made you say, "Hmm." And in the future, if you see one race like that and you look up and you see a nice big price on the board, maybe worth an extra look. All right, that takes you through some of that nice Churchill action. Again, Churchill, PARX, both firing nicely with stakes action yesterday to kind of fill out an otherwise funny day with a few tracks getting canceled yesterday because of the weather, but there was still plenty of really good action. We'll look forward to some good action tomorrow as well. We'll take a break and we'll be joined by Tony Kalo from the Finger Lakes. They have two nice stakes races on their card tomorrow. We'll talk about that and more right after this. Stay tuned.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As noted earlier, haven't talked to our friend Tony Kalo in a while because when we come up to Saratoga, we're live with the guests, so don't do really anything via phone. But we had been doing the Sunday visits to kind of preview some of the action coming up in the week. And this week, very nice. A couple of nice 2-year-old stakes tomorrow at the Finger Lakes. So our friend Tony Kalo on board. Tony, good morning.
Good morning, Seth.
And as I was talking to you off the air, we're looking forward. In a couple of weeks, we will be up for a live visit at the Finger Lakes. We'll do some live cut-ins during the afternoon up there. Looking forward to getting back out to the Finger Lakes.
Yeah, it's been a few years. In fact, I think last time you were live, it was you and Brian Nadeau.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. How'd the summer go? Summer out of Finger Lakes? Summer in general?
It went. I was kind of like, as you know, very wet and humid and straight to some cool weather now, huh?
Yeah. No, the weather was certainly an issue all over. Did you make it out? Were you at Saratoga at all?
Nope, I did not, Seth, and if I would have, I would have called you.
Okay.
So,
right.
I don't know if people are trying to lie to you and tell you there was a Tony Kalo sighting.
No.
Was not.
I was checking because I was going to have to chide you if you didn't. But we got it. We are looking forward to a live Tony Kalo on the Saratoga backstretch. So next summer, mark it on the agenda.
Yeah, I know. It's been long overdue. I haven't been to Saratoga in a few years, which is a shame because I'm not that far away. Sometimes I guess we take a few things for granted. Oh, I can get there next year. I can get there next year.
And you always have the good party out there in the back. You have a good group out there in the backyard. So yeah, next summer for sure. But speaking of Saratoga, we have some Saratoga alumni, as it were, some horses that have raced at Saratoga showing up in the 2 stakes tomorrow. So we'll take a look at the 2 stakes first, and then you got a couple other ideas on the card for tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. I always love weekday stakes action because it just kind of throws a little juice into the week. And with the 2 nice 2-year-old stakes tomorrow, Finger Lakes will take certainly a lot of attention. And things kick off in the 4th tomorrow with the aspirant for the 2-year-old state breds. I pulled up a replay, Saratoga, August 12th. The winner here will be number 5, Tall Paul. Tall Paul going out for trainer Bob Baffert, who I was trying to think yesterday. I don't know how many Baffert horses I've seen ever start at the Finger Lakes. I mean, maybe New York Derby or maybe that old Saratoga Breeders' Cup race that was run, that old Finger Lakes Breeders' Cup race that was run years ago. I remember Groovy won that one year. I could see Baffert maybe going there, but he has Tall Paul as a state bred, no surprise, running in New York for the big money. So Tall Paul for Bob Baffert's interesting to me. Can I Get a Loan? Second-time starter for Jeremiah Engelhart, who ran second in a debut up at Saratoga behind Trust Fund, who's also in tomorrow for Todd Pletcher. Jose Ortiz scheduled to be out there. Irod Ortiz, Kendrick Carmouche scheduled to ride Can I Get a Loan? Kendrick is riding very well right now. Fun little group in here. What do you think in the fourth tomorrow at Finger Lakes?
Yeah, you got it pretty much covered. It's a cool race. My director of racing, Todd Height, was asking me the same question. Have I ever seen a Bob Baffert horse at Finger Lakes? I haven't since I've been here in 2008. So it's pretty cool. You think about it. And then you got Irad and Jose and Kendrick and Manny Franco coming to town. I was promoting it last week, and I was like, no, that is not a Saturday at Naira. That is a Monday at Finger Lakes. Todd Pletcher, what a race it is. I call it the Aspirant. I know Ross Morton used to call it the Aspirant. Tall Paul, probably my top pick. I did watch the replay like you. I was pretty impressed. The horse took a lot of pressure from Quiet Wisdom throughout and seemed to have his number and opened up with a big, powerful stride. I do a pre-race analysis here at Finger Lakes the last couple of seasons, and I'm always preaching about proper spacing, and I absolutely love the spacing.
Yeah.
The horse debuts on the 23rd of July, wheeled back relatively quick, crossing the country. Now has been given ample time for proper rest and recovery, a very nice work tab. I'll make him my top pick. But the other three, obviously, Antonio of Venice, who looked good winning on the 20th of July, sitting a nice trip. How he will adjust with an inside post, that remains to be seen. But it looks like he could be one of the closers. If Trust Fund and Tall Paul and maybe one of the debuters kind of mix it up, then the 1 and the 3 are the two horses who look to try to come closing late. But I give Tall Paul a little bit of the advantage. But if you've got a big bankroll, obviously the 1, 3, and 6 look like the other 3 players.
Yeah, as I say, the Jeremiah horse is interesting as a maiden coming in here, but with the number that one fired in the debut, I think fits in here. And again, that number was behind Trust Fund. Trust Fund subsequently had some trouble and ran, well beaten 6th in the funny side. Also cross-entered down at Belmont at Aqueduct today, and I haven't seen any scratches today to see which spot this horse will go in. But that horse is a question mark on the race in the funny side. But again,
I'm glad you bring that up. I was unaware of that, Seth.
Yeah, Can I Get a Loan is to me kind of the interesting player though. Off of that, and again, it's always interesting to see a maiden. Speaking of maiden, the two coming in a debut effort, so throws a complete puzzle piece into the jigsaw there.
Yeah, 2 debuters, the 2 and the 5. Getting back to the Trust Fund, Can I Get a Loan race? I went and watched that. And what's funny is when you're watching the pan, I'm saying to myself, boy, Can I Get a Loan just doesn't really have anywhere to go and looked like the horse was a little bottled up. Then I go and watch the head on, and I thought the horse had ample room along the inside. And it could have been just a debut thing, and a lot of 2-year-olds, maybe they're just not quite as professional or yet still race ready to push on through on the inside. So maybe if he gets himself into a good position and then swings out into the center of the racetrack, he'll be able to lengthen that stride. I do find him pretty intriguing, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a fun race, and I'm actually just checking here to see if scratches are out yet on my computer.
Yeah.
To see maybe which way. This would be borderline. It seems like usually you don't see it until about 11 o'clock. But I'm just here we go. Andy Serling has tweeted out scratches. So let me see if trust fund is a scratch. So
Okay.
that means you got him tomorrow, I would assume. If he scratched
Nice,
today at Belmont,
nice.
you got him tomorrow. So he has another little bit of intrigue out there.
Yeah,
on
I
the
mean,
card.
if he and Tall Paul go and throw it down, like I said, maybe this 3-horse is a little intriguing at the 5-1 price.
Yeah, going to be a fun race there. A little bit later on, it's the girls, the Ladyfinger state-bred 2-year-old fillies going 5.5. And I pulled up a replay from the Finger Lakes going back to September 11th. It's going to be number 1, Like a Rolling Stone. I had to show it. It's our friend Roddy Valente, a homebred for Roddy by Bustin' Stones, as the name might indicate. And this is a pretty good-looking debut effort. It's going to win off the chart margin 8 3/4. So they leave this race and take a shot for the better part of $103,000. But again, it's a nice, fun field of some horses coming in from out of town, including Moon Chariot, who tried Saratoga last time. Solo Shot, who was the debut winner up at Saratoga for George Weaver, certainly going to take a lot of action. Unicorn Cake for Jeremiah won in a Saratoga debut. This is a fun race. What do you see in the Ladyfinger?
Yeah, it is a fun race. I'm looking at it from a pace standpoint, and it looks like there's an ample amount of speed. Solo Shot looked very good winning on the 27th of August. I'm always a little suspect sometimes with the off the turfs onto the dirt because I'm not sure who stuck around and how many of the horses were truly meant for the dirt. But with that said, when a horse wins by nearly 8 lengths, it doesn't matter. It was an excellent performance. She does appear to be the inside speed. Exodes is a little cheaper speed. Then we throw in another turfer who's been running in 5 furlong races, Nikki Jolene. She could be mixing it up. I was impressed with the 8 Red Wine and Whiskey's debut run. If you look at the work tab, it looked like she came into her debut run perhaps not as not the way you'd like it. She had some workouts leading up to the 17th of July, but she had almost a month of inactivity in the morning, and despite that inactivity, I thought she ran very well, and I know she was very well meant. I had heard a lot of good things about her. Robert Simonek, Rip, as we like to call him, he had been around the track telling everybody she was gonna win. Ewan Tequila was her dam who ran a lot of good races here at Finger Lakes and at Tampa. She's my intriguing long shot. But with all that said, just the amount of speed, I was really impressed with the 1 Unicorn Cake debut. I do like the fact that she ran 6 furlongs and she was able to unleash a pretty good final furlong. I watched that replay and the entire time I'm like, how does she win? When does she win? Where does she make her run? And she really leveled out beautifully. I remember her dam, Party Like Grandma. And the fact she's going from 6 to 5.5 with an abundant amount of speed. The only knock would be the rail, but if they just go so quick early, Kendrick will be able to probably save a lot of ground and tip out. And I'm anticipating at the 8th pole she's going to take off. I love horses who run with their heads close to the ground, and she just showed a big determination to get to the winner's circle, and she's going to be my top pick. And hopefully I can get close to that 4-1.
Yeah, and you got to love when a 2-year-old does that. I mean, debut effort sits off and then closes. That says a lot for their mindset. And Kendrick Carmouche, I mentioned it earlier. He's on a nice run coming into doing the afternoon handicapping show. Coming into this week, I knew Kendrick was going well, and so I went back and looked. And going back to the last day of Saratoga, he had a win. A week. This past week on Tuesday, he was down at PARX, took a day off. On the day off in New York, went down to PARX and got a win. He won the Virginia Derby a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago. And so in the period, so I had those numbers ready for the week at Belmont and Aqueduct last week when it started. But then he had a great week as well. So I think at this point, over the past few weeks since the end of Saratoga, he's hitting at about 25%. So having Kendrick on board is certainly a bonus for Unicorn Cake as well.
Good. Nice deal. Like I said, the one concern is the rail positioning, but it just appears with so much speed, she's going to get a beautiful trip. And I do believe, that debut run 6, getting 5.5 in the second career start. I'll take my chances.
Yeah.
I'll take my chances with Unicorn Cake.
I like it. A couple more ideas on the card tomorrow. Race number 3. It's a state bred optional claimer. Non-winners of 2, a mile and a 16th. What do you see in race number 3?
We're going to try to generate some value for us. Royal Suspect is the second choice at 5-2. Been beating up on starter allowance competition. This is a big step up in class to the second state bred. A lot of money is going to go on Allure of Money because he won the New York Derby, and then everyone's going to see that he just ran in the Albany. And I have my doubts a little bit. I'm on the 5, Shared Success. I've been a big fan of this horse for dating back to last year. You know, it's pretty cool about this horse. He, you really look into his PPs. I can't recall if it was, I think it was 20. He might have debuted in 20. And he had a little bit of issues, and he didn't get back to the races for quite some time. And then he came back like in 20, might have even been 19 for all I know, maybe when he was a 2-year-old. And then he got back to the races in 21, and he didn't have many races. And last year he was able to put together a solid campaign. He won 4 of 9. He made $76,000. Loved the way he looked on the 18th of July. Octu Lieber's come back and won since then. And I'm willing to forgive the efforts at Saratoga. He was in a small field when he ran in the Wilson Shoot race on the 5th of August. And I believe if you really look at his form, he's a lot better when he gets pace to chase, a target to pursue. I'll throw out the turf race. If you give me anything close to 5-1, I'll go both fists on Shared Success.
Kaibar going very well, and 5-1. I like that. And I pulled up the Equibase page while you were talking, and you nailed it. Started in 2019, had 3 starts in 2019, 1 start in 2020, no starts in 2021, but since coming back has run very, very well.
I still have a pretty decent little memory for an old timer, Seth.
Very good. 6th race tomorrow. State bred allowance runners, 5.5 furlongs the trip. What did you see in the 6th?
I'll tell you what, this is one of the cooler races on the card. You know, we just talked about that nice second state bred allowance race. We talked about the 2-year-old races. If the fans are unaware of Jack and Bernie, well, you'll get to know a little bit about him tomorrow. He has so far been a buzzsaw. He's won by nearly 12 lengths in his debut, by nearly 9 in his second start. Last time out, go watch the replay, everybody. This horse wins in 10-3, which is racehorse time at Finger Lakes. We don't see a lot of 10 and changes there, and he's geared down. You know, the Breeds had a really, really nice horse once upon a time with that, what was his name? Breaking the Fever, I believe that was his name, Seth. And this horse looks like he could be every bit as good as him. It's pretty interesting. He is Winston Chance's little brother. And Winston does most of his good running going 2 turns. And, you know, you would think with Destin as the sire that this horse would probably be a 2-turn horse, but he has just been running holes in the wind in these 6 furlong affairs, and he's an absolute freak. Obviously, you got to beat him. For some reason, I don't know. I just hate being a chalk-eating weasel. I'm hoping maybe CJ's Grand Slam can just soften him up a little bit. I'm going to land on the outside horse, Trelad. Obviously, you've got to beat this Jack and Bernie, but Trelad has really impressed me. I've gotten to know Carl O'Callahan just a little bit. It's not like we're best of buddies or anything, but a couple little occasional text messages and tweets. And this is a great story. I don't think he paid a lot of money for this horse. I believe he has rescued the dam from a situation that wasn't great, and I believe he's taken her in at his farm, which is pretty cool. He won a big race once upon a time with Kinsale King and the Golden Shaheen at Dubai years and years ago. And he has really just been a horseman with Trelad. He's given him ample time between races. He's looked sensational in 4 starts. He ran his heart out in defeat to Victorious Wave. And you'll remember out of that affair, Victorious Wave went to Saratoga. and won a 32 or a 25, I believe it was. Came back, beat Guarallo. Last time drew the rail, had a bad start, took off late. Guarallo had the lead. He couldn't reel him in. If anybody's going to reel in Jack and Bernie, it's this horse, and you're going to get value on him tomorrow because they're going to bet Jack and Bernie off the board, and maybe you get 9-5, 2-1, 5-2 on Trillette on the outside.
All right. I like it. And, looking to see what Jack and Bernie can do in career start number 4 after the 3 big wins so far. So that'll make that a fun race also. Tony, as always, appreciate the visits, and we will continue to plug in to do a little preview of some of the Finger Lakes action, but looking forward to coming up for a visit sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome, Seth. We're always happy when you guys are in town.
Yeah, we're happy to swing by. So we'll see you then, and thanks for the visit this morning.
One shameless little plug, all fans, we have free past performances online, fingerlakesgaming.com. Click on the racing tab. Scroll on down to free digital program. 1:15 tomorrow, Seth.
Very good. And I'll remind people also, we have on our website, we've been putting up the pick sheet for Finger Lakes as well. If people look for our tip sheet page on the Capital OTB, you can find them on the Finger Lakes website as well. But if you're browsing around ours, we put the Finger Lakes tip sheet up as well. But go out to the Finger Lakes website for the free PPs. That's a nice bonus also.
Yep, and that tip sheet is included with those free programs also.
Excellent. Tony, thanks a lot. We'll talk again.
Thank you, Seth.
Tony Kalo from the Finger Lakes. Again, 2 nice 2-year-old stakes tomorrow with some notable New York names heading upstate for the action as well. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for a Sunday morning after a nice, again, stakes day that allowed us to recap some really nice stakes that helped give some juice to a day that kind of fell apart yesterday with the weather. But it looks like the weather has moderated and that storm has moved away. So, we were affected by some cancellations yesterday, which, as I say, again, we were eventually helped by a good action at PARX all day long. You got to watch some nice action down there, and then went right into the evening with a good card last night at Churchill down. So things, we had a hiccup as far as the weather and some tracks canceling, but we still had great racing action yesterday. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you cashed some tickets. We'll do it all again today. I'll be back in about an hour and a half or so to kick off OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. We'll take a look at some of the action. I have some Belmont and some Churchill. And as usual on a Sunday, I'll probably head over to our printer over here and print up Saratoga Harness. Last Saturday at I don't think I'm going to be able to pull it up, but last Sunday at Saratoga Harness, it was a pretty good day. We'll see if we can give some ideas out on the sulky side again this afternoon. But we'll have plenty of thoroughbred action that we'll take a look at also. But all that coming up, as I say, about an hour and a half or so for OTB Live. Otherwise, one more reminder that Football Sunday here at the Clubhouse Racebook, every Sunday throughout the NFL season. Come on down, watch all the football action, enjoy all the racing action, put your name on one of the squares, and maybe you win some prizes at the end of the quarters, the end of the game. Always a lot of fun down here at the Clubhouse Racebook throughout the NFL season. Football Sunday, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. And also, you can grab a little lunch, hang out with your buddies, have some fun down here. Not just on Sundays. You can have fun every day down here at the Clubhouse Racebook, but Sundays, you can enjoy the football action as well. All right. We'll wrap it up for this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow with Racing Across America. As always, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. So, again, we'll be back in about an hour and a half or so with OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. We'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.